We begin with the release from jail of an infamous multiple killer. Paul Evers murdered 5 neighbours during a shooting rampage more than 5 decades ago. Today, Evers is a free man.
What do we do with our worst criminals? The evil ones, the mentally deranged ones, when they're out of jail?
After they've served their time, they may still put the community at risk.
Once they were locked away in asylums, sent to prison for their natural life.
Otherwise, these offenders would be walking around in the community unmonitored, unsupervised and not receiving treatment.
Now, there are counsellors, medication and ankle bracelets. But is it enough to keep us safe?
One day they don't turn up for their medication and you don't know where they are, then you've got a problem.
What is the alternative?
There's only one other way, and that would be to terminate their lives.
So what to do with Paul Evers? The mass killer with untreatable schizophrenia, just released from prison and back on our streets. It's quiet enough now, but 25 years ago this month, it was a vastly different story.
4 of the victims died instantly from head wounds. One man clung to life but died before he could be taken to hospital.
Really upset me.
5 of her friends died in this Housing Commission block on that awful day.
I didn't want to talk about it then. Yes. This is the first time.
Annette is still too frightened to show her face.
And I think that's more than anything has got me in here because...
And now she takes us back, the only resident from that time still living here.
And the one above, that's where the husband and wife were murdered.
You still remember it well?
Very.
Evers, she says, was always a little strange.
He just absolutely mentally stepped out, and that was it.
Taunted by a neighbour who called him a doll bludger, he took his revenge out on 5 innocent residents.
I heard a couple of shots and then the woman screaming, and then more shots, and I hopped out the window and called the police.
Annette was outside, just metres away.
We ducked down in case we didn't know. So at the same time, 2 uniforms came up, and I said to them, and I knew straight off, it's at block 16, I didn't know the number. I said, he lives on the ground floor, his name's Paul.
You knew that it would have been him?
Yeah, because I saw him the day before and he was completely erratic. Paul, he was running around talking, kicking doors, so he was in a bad mood.
Evers worked his way through the block, looking for victims, including his half-sister, Michelle.
It's pretty dramatic, isn't it? I hope I don't see anything like this again.
Some miraculously survived, like Annette and 76-year-old Arthur Robinson, who ignored Evers' knock on his door because his tea water was boiling.
That saved me life, mate.
After the shooting spree, Evers went to this nearby shop, had a cigarette and bought a soft drink.
He just walked towards the police that had just arrived, and it appeared to me that he surrendered himself.
I saw Paul coming back and they asked his name because I said what he looked like, and they asked his name and he said, yeah, I'm Paul Evers, and they said, you're under arrest.
Police recovered a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun from a ground-floor unit.
Diagnosed with untreatable schizophrenia, he was found not guilty of murder because of his mental illness and sentenced to the maximum 25 years for manslaughter with a non-parole of 18 years.
At Darlinghurst Court this morning, Justice Newman described the case as being in the worst category of manslaughter.
He was released on parole after 18 years, but it was soon revoked after he indecently assaulted a disabled woman and smoked cannabis. He went back to complete the full sentence. And now, 25 years is up. So to that question, what to do with Paul Evers?
I take that decision to make an application for the court to consider a supervision order.
Like her fellow Attorney Generals around the country, Gabrielle Upton from New South Wales has the power to keep our worst criminals under supervision when their jail time is up.
They have committed horrible crimes. They might be sex crimes or horribly violent crimes.
So Evers and other intractable criminals are earmarked for an extended supervision order.
And way ahead of their release, we have the jail authorities working with the Department of Justice to identify serious risk offenders.
They get an ankle bracelet, and according to Michelle McAuliffe from Corrective Services, a whole lot of eyes watching them.
We have 6 police officers who work with us, 2 psychologists, a legal team, an intelligence team and an electronic monitoring team who all work together to manage these offenders in the community.
But how do we know all this will work?
There is absolutely no guarantee. You can never give a 100% guarantee.
Howard Brown is an advocate for victims of crime and says 2 offenders under watch recently cut their tags off.
And we've had them back in custody within 12 minutes of them cutting their tags off.
They weren't alone.
So there are 53 offenders currently in New South Wales on ESO orders. There are 12 offenders currently in custody on breaches of those orders.
Unless you've got someone at their elbow, literally monitoring them, following them around 24/7, you're not going to know what they're up to.
Forensic psychiatrist Julian Parmigiani says an ankle bracelet won't prevent another crime from being committed, but at best might give the police half a chance in telling them where they are.
If somebody goes to, from A to B to commit an offence, and there's someone sitting a long way away in a monitoring room, it's going to take time.
And the doctor cites an example of the flaws in the system.
Peter Schneiders has spent almost half of his 36 years behind bars.
He fought against the release of one of the nation's worst criminals, Peter Schneiders, who killed a prison officer while in jail.
He was released in the community, supposedly with very close monitoring, and within a couple of months he took his own life in a place where he wasn't meant to be by taking drugs that he wasn't meant to be taking.
And then there are those who don't make the supervision order.
We released a lot of people who we classify as forensic patients, people who are quite mentally ill, and we don't provide the services to them.
Other than capital punishment or locking them up for life, supervision orders are all we've got.
Oh, it was as clear can be.
And the memories of what can happen.
It is etched in my mind. It really is.
Now, just to clarify, those shootings happened 25 years ago, not 5 decades, as I said in the intro, and the supervision order for Paul Evers is due in the New South Wales Supreme Court in November.